𝗤 ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। So we are talking about, just a small talk and not a long one, but I'm talking about what is Krishna consciousness. That's what we are discussing. It's some basic question, but we need to go a little details in this. Next slide, can you please do? Okay, so what is Krishna consciousness? Now, what I'm going to talk about in this seminar, I'm going to tell you from where this word has come. Like Prabhupada didn't really make it up. It's a source of this word, Krishna consciousness. And what's the history of this name? And then we will see what is the meaning of this word, Krishna consciousness. And then I'll go into little details. What are the components of Krishna consciousness? What are we doing here? So all these questions must be addressed in this talk. What is Krishna consciousness? Next slide. So the point is, this is one of the Prabhupada's book in the search of ultimate goal of life. This is one book of Prabhupada, and it's a preface. And you will find this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, by the way. This verse is famous. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita mati kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam janma koti sukrutair na labhyate. Now, what happened is that when Prabhupada came to America, he wanted to open an institution, naturally. So first he thought the name God consciousness. That's what he thought, because it should be universal. So he was thinking God consciousness, International Society for God Consciousness. But then he was thinking, and some devotees said, Prabhupada, it's very abstract. Because there's so many, like God, what do you define? Especially in America, God is not a very abstract term. At least in India you have God means, God means either demigods and God, or at large God means you are God, I am God, like that. But in America there are so many speculations. God means that universal laws, God means light, God means your feelings, God means love. It's crazy. So devotees, the people were saying it's very abstract. So then Prabhupada says, okay, fine, let us keep the name International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Let us keep that. So he brought that word Krishna. But then he brought this word, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He brought this word, Krishna and consciousness. In India, when he was there in Allahabad, he started another institution before coming to India. What's a League of Devotees? Before this institution, League of Devotees. But that, when Prabhupada came to America, probably he was thinking not to introduce that kind of name. But he got that word Krishna consciousness. Now where did he get this word? From this verse. This is a verse written, Prabhupada quotes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and in this book also, in the search of ultimate goal of life. This is a verse originally written by Rupa Goswami in one of his book, Padyavali, if you know that book. And the meaning of this verse is, Rupa Goswami is writing, Krishna bhakti rasa bhavita matihi. Now, if anywhere you get Krishna bhakti ras, bhavita mati means if you get a mind which is dovetailed with Krishna bhakti, or bhavita mati means consciousness. Mati means intelligence, bhavita means intelligence which is imbued with Krishna Bhakti. So Prabhupada directly got this word from this verse, first line. Krishna Bhakti means Krishna. Krishna means Krishna. Bhakti 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗲 means consciousness. Krishna, consciousness. So, but this verse says, Kriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate. If you get Krishna consciousness, api labhyate. Labhyate means get. Labh, labhyate. Kuto api. Kuto means if anywhere. Kuto means anywhere. If anywhere you get Krishna consciousness, then you get it. But there is a price. And the price is Tatra laulyam api mulyam ekalam. Mulyam means price. Ekalam means only. The only price to get that Krishna consciousness is laulyam. Laulyam means, you know laulyam? Greed. Greed is the only price to get Krishna consciousness. That's all. If you want, it shall be given. That's when Bible it is said. It's a famous saying. Christ said, you ask and it shall be given. But the problem is people don't ask. Or they don't have that intense desire to ask. Isn't it? Just like chanting, we say, Krishna, please engage me in your service, engage me in your service, engage me in your service. Okay. But that's not like a child's cry for the mother. It's not like that. So really we are not asking. So that's why Christ said, if you ask, it shall be given. So that's greed. Greed to attain love of God. Greed to attain Krishna consciousness. A consciousness where only Krishna is there, nothing else is there. So, and then Rupa Goswami says, well, but that to get that, forget about Krishna consciousness. To get that greed, koti sukruti rapina labhyate. Janma koti, millions of lives you can spend, but na labhyate, but you will not get that greed. To attain Krishna consciousness is very easy. But to attain the greed to attain Krishna consciousness, that's the difficult part. And that is why scripture says both. Isn't it? Sometimes scripture says to attain devotion is so easy. In one moment it can happen. And sometimes they say it's so difficult. So what's happening? So this is how the riddle is solved. It's easy once you get desire. Like this you will get. But the point is to get the desire to attain that, that's koti sukruti, millions of lives it might take, if we are not sincere and focused. So that is why once, I think Prabhupada was going in West somewhere, I don't know, in New York or Philadelphia. So Prabhupada just went in the car and so one devotee came running and stopped Prabhupada. And they asked, Prabhupada, he was a new devotee, Prabhupada, what is Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada didn't have time, he's just going. And he just said, he looked at him and he said, desire. If in one word you want to know Krishna consciousness, that desire, that is this. Laulyam means desire. That is Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is saying the qualification to attain Krishna consciousness. Now, what we are doing now, are we Krishna conscious or not? Do we have a desire to attain Krishna consciousness or not? Maybe some desire, that's why we are here. Otherwise we'll not be here. But we don't have intense desire. That is why our Krishna consciousness is little bit. Because our desire is little bit. So it all depends on desire. So desire to attain Krishna consciousness is directly proportional to the amount you are Krishna consciousness. Krishna conscious, let's say that, like that. So remember this verse, it's a beautiful verse, Krishna Bhakta Rasa Bhavita Matihi. So if anybody asks from where this word is coming, you can quote this. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. Bhavita Mati means Krishna consciousness. Krishna Bhakti means Krishna. Because Krishna includes Bhakti. Krishna includes devotion. That word includes devotion, isn't it? For us, the word Krishna comes with the word devotion. Because we are devotees. We don't separate devotion from Krishna, isn't it? We don't separate Radha from Krishna. So Radha is devotion. Okay, here next slide. So, having said what is the origin of Krishna consciousness, let's talk about what is, this is said by Prabhupada, by the way. Prabhupada speaks on this verse. He explains what is Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyatam 𝗙𝗂𝗍𝗶𝗪 Labhyate. This is one of the Prabhupada lectures. And Prabhupada says, the anxiety for Krishna. Prabhupada translates 𝗠𝗨𝗪𝗀 not as greed, not as desire, but as anxiety. And this is a beautiful translation, because if you say greed, that's really abstract, isn't it? I have greed, then what is greed? But Prabhupada translates as anxiety. So anxiety for Krishna. So in other words, if you want to attain Krishna consciousness, what you should have? Anxiety, see? Prabhupada always brought that point. Have anxiety for him. Spiritual anxiety. If it can be purchased, immediately purchase it. Rupa Goswami said, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyatam. Just purchase Krishna anxiety if it is available somewhere. So don't purchase Krishna peace or Krishna satisfaction. That will come. But we want Krishna anxiety. We want to be anxious for Krishna. How to get that anxiety, that's another thing. I'll talk about that. But the idea is, what is the price? Tatra 𝗨𝗨𝗪 api mulyam. That anxiety can be purchased. So I'll do it. No jan koti sukruti labhe. That anxiety is not available even by millions of births and pious activities. Prabhupada says that. And then he continues forward. So you see the point. You see, it's such a different thing. I mean to say, for yogis and jnanis, it is peace. For us, it is anxiety. That is why yogis and jnanis cannot understand devotees. They think what's happening. These people are. That's why they say devotion is for less intelligent people. They say that. We are in samadhi. And that is why the whole world, everyone, all the institutions, spiritual institutions, are preaching of peace. But we are not here with the message of peace. We are here with the message of love of God. And love of God means anxiety for God, isn't it? If a mother loves a child, she is anxious for her child. That's love. If the mother is not anxious for her child, then what do you mean? The conclusion is either she is not his or her mother, or she is mad. That's all. Love comes with anxiety. Am I right or not? It comes with anxiety. So our message is not peace, and that's why Christ also said in Bible, he said, I have not come here with a message of peace. I have come in this world with a sword in my hand to cut ties between brother and brother, mother and child, husband and wife. He said this. People are saying, what's happening? What he's saying. So that's how it goes. Anyway, our process is love of God. You see the point? So love has anxiety, love has peace, both. Peace for this material world. Okay. As far as material world concerned, we are not anxious. We are peaceful. But we are very anxious to do something for Krishna, to attain Krishna. We are so anxious. So we have to understand, Krishna consciousness means a consciousness full of anxiety for Krishna. That's one first meaning of Krishna consciousness. This word Krishna consciousness means, now somebody will ask, okay, you told the history of this word. What's the meaning? So then you have to quote this verse and then quote Prabhupada, connect it, and then say, okay, now we know Krishna consciousness means a consciousness which is full of anxiety for Krishna. Anxiety to do something for him. Anxiety to attain him. Anxiety to please him. That's love. So I've given you one meaning of this word Krishna consciousness, and now I'll give you many other meanings of this word, of Krishna consciousness. At least we should know what this means, isn't it? Because we are practicing Krishna. Somebody comes, what you are doing? Krishna consciousness. So what that means? I don't know. It means chanting. Then it's madness. Okay, again, next slide can we have? Okay, so what are the various meanings of Krishna consciousness? One meaning I have told you. Is it okay? This you always remember. Otherwise you'll get confused, because very few people, even in an institution, are promoting this meaning, anxiety for Krishna. That's a true, the core level. This is the meaning of that.
This is the first time actually I heard of it.
Oh yeah, see.
Most of the time it is love of God.
Yeah,
God,
it's so abstract, yeah. But this is the point. Okay, yeah, next slide. Yeah, can you press in the slide only? Okay, fine, just a minute. So the first meaning, besides that, the first meaning of Krishna consciousness is thinking of Krishna. Now here by thinking, I mean anxiety. I mean to say, with all these definitions, you have to put anxiety there. So anxiously thinking of Krishna. So that is underlying. The first meaning is Krishna consciousness, to be conscious of Krishna. Isn't it simple? And consciousness means thinking. And here thinking means anxiously. Anxiety. So anxiously thinking of Krishna, that is Krishna consciousness. First meaning. Yeah, next. And then when you little advance in Krishna consciousness, then you have another deeper level. All these levels Prabhupada speaks in his room conversations and lectures. He is indicating here and there. And the another level Prabhupada speaks in one of his conversations. Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness means thinking what Krishna is thinking. When you advance, then you will be able to think what Krishna is thinking. So you're conscious what Krishna is conscious of. That's Krishna conscious. So you're anxiously thinking what Krishna is anxiously thinking about us. Actually, you're anxiously thinking what Krishna is thinking, anxiously. That's the second level. When you advance, when you have knowledge, when you start to know this person, then you know what exactly he's thinking. And it happens in any relationship, isn't it? The more you know the person, the more you can figure out what he's thinking. So just like our friends, so if a friend does something, so sometimes you say, I know what you are thinking, why you are behaving abnormally, isn't it? You should not be doing this, I know that. So because the relationship is tight, because now you know that person. So the more you know Krishna, the more you advance, then definition of Krishna consciousness changes. Then it becomes thinking what Krishna is thinking. And then when you advance more, when you become almost perfect, then the definition of Krishna consciousness changes a little bit. Yeah, can you just press, yeah, next. Then you can thinking what Krishna is thinking about you. I see. Oh, yeah, there. Thinking what Krishna is thinking about you. That is the ultimate level of Krishna consciousness. You're conscious how Krishna is conscious about you. So the first level of meaning is, you're conscious of Krishna. If you bring this term consciousness, now I don't open this term, now let's use Krishna conscious means you're conscious of Krishna. When you advance more, when you know Krishna more, then you're conscious what Krishna is conscious of. So Krishna is conscious of his cows, his Radha, his Govardhan. You see, when you have relationship, then you know. And then when you super advance, when you almost become perfect, then you're conscious how Krishna is conscious about you. That is the ultimate perfection. That is relationship. Actually, that is love. Isn't it? In love, this happens. Like, it's common sense, I mean to say. And daily we are doing this. We talk to anybody, what we are thinking. You talk to anybody, so what's there in your mind? The first thought in your mind is what he's thinking about me. That's what you're thinking, isn't it? And then you talk to him, then you come back and then you say, no, he didn't think about me properly, he has this assumption and that. It's all like wife and husband, this is the point. Husband is always thinking what she's thinking about me, she's thinking what he's thinking about me. And that's a relationship. Relationship, it happens. If you have tight relationship, this is the thought. If you have loving relationship, then you're not thinking about yourself. You're neither really thinking about himself, but you're thinking how he's thinking about you. That's how it goes. That's how loving relationship goes on. So if you think how he's thinking about me, then you start behaving in such a way which pleases him. so that he feels good. Isn't it? Then love can go on, otherwise how it will go on? So that is Krishna consciousness, that is perfection. All these three levels of definition Prabhupada has given us. And we have to go in the last thing. You should be able to think what Krishna is thinking about you. But how to do that? The next level, thinking what Krishna is thinking, you can go to this level by knowledge, by taking information. What Krishna is thinking about Radha, Krishna is thinking about Govardhan, Krishna is thinking this, that. We have information, isn't it? But the third level, thinking what Krishna is thinking about you, that requires contact with Super Soul, which comes in a very advanced level. You have a direct relationship with God. But that's perfection of life which we are seeking for. It's clear? So these are the three meanings of Krishna consciousness. So these are some, let's say, this is the definition of Krishna consciousness. The definition of Krishna consciousness on three levels of advancement. The definition of Krishna consciousness. But we have to presume that in all this thinking you have to add anxiety word there. If you remove anxiety, it doesn't work. Okay. Okay, next slide. I've already told this, but anyway. So that is a definition. Now what are the components of Krishna consciousness? So I told you should be anxious for Krishna. Okay, so anxious for Krishna. So anxious for what? So this is the term brought by Bhaktivedanta. Krishna Kam, Krishna Nam, Krishna Dham. We are anxious to do something for Krishna. Krishna Kam. Isn't it? I told you we have to be anxious for Krishna. Now for what? For Krishna? It doesn't make any sense. For Krishna what? Should be anxious to do something for Krishna. That's called Krishna Kam. You should be anxious, Krishna Nam, you should be anxious to chant His holy names. Millions of holy names. Repeatedly. Through millions of tongues, through millions of bodies, which has millions of tongues. And Krishna Dham, we should be anxious to associate with devotees and take knowledge. So that is Krishna consciousness. If you talk about Krishna consciousness, anxiety, what is that anxiety for? That anxiety is for doing something for Krishna. That anxiety is for chanting holy names perfectly. Attaining perfection in chanting holy. Actually, Mahaprabhu says Nam Ruchi. Anxious for getting taste in holy name. Anyway, we are chanting, so anxious for getting taste for holy name. And Krishna Dham is anxious for association of devotees, or in other words, anxious for taking knowledge. So if you have these three things, then you can say Krishna consciousness. By these three things you can judge whether I am Krishna conscious, how much I am Krishna conscious. Anxiety to do something for Krishna, anxiety to get taste in holy name, and anxiety for getting knowledge. I want more, I want to understand more. That is these three words all about. Yeah, next slide. Now this whole thing, Krishna Kam, Krishna Nam, Krishna Dham, that is coming from Bhagavad Gita, by the way. This concept. And you see this verse 18.5? Yagya dan tapa karma pavanani manishina. You know this verse, no? Yagya dan tapa, act of sacrifice, charity and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, a sacrifice, charity, penance purify even great souls. Sacrifice means yagya, charity means dana, and penance means tapa. Krishna says yagya dan tap even purifies greatest of souls. So yagya dan tap, Krishna says you should not be given. So what are these yagya dan tap? So yagya means what? Yeah. Yagya nanam japo yagyasmi. Chanting. Krishna nam is there, see? And what is charity? Charity is danam. Danam, so what's that? What's that? That is Krishna Dham, giving knowledge. Knowledge. Association of devotees, we get knowledge. Krishna Dham, isn't it? That's what we told. Knowledge. Devotees give dhanam of knowledge. And what is penance? Tapa. Tapa in Krishna consciousness is service. Then we do something for Krishna. It's not easy. That's tapasya. That's tapasya for us. So that is Krishna Kam. So all these three words, Krishna says these three things even purify greatest of souls. Krishna Kam, Krishna Nam, Krishna Dham. It's directly coming from Bhagavad Gita, 18.5. So that's what we have to do here in Krishna consciousness. Okay, next slide. So I'll just speak something more about that, but the point is we have to balance in all those three things. We have to be anxious for action, anxious for doing something for Krishna. We should be anxious to get taste for holy names. We should be anxious to take knowledge. And if we balance between these three, then we can say we are really Krishna consciousness. If this balance is tipped, there's a problem. And I talked about this on the first day, isn't it? Yeah, next slide. So, it's going. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah, next slide. So, let's see here what's happening. This is, okay, now I'm giving various insight into Krishna consciousness, what Prabhupada speaks about Krishna consciousness in various books, and you relate to it. Prabhupada speaks many things about Krishna. He defines Krishna consciousness in many ways. But you can't take one thing, you have to harmonize all of them. Then we understand what is Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says in Path of Perfection book, chapter 1, Krishna consciousness means activity. Okay? So we'll do something for Krishna, that is Krishna consciousness, isn't it? That's what we told, anxiously to do something for Krishna. So activity are next. But then Prabhupada goes a little more details, and then Prabhupada says, yeah, next slide, yeah, next, can you click? It'll come here. Krishna consciousness means to purify the desire. This is Bhagavad Gita, lecture Prabhupada is giving, 66. Now the point is, if you do something for Krishna, it should be done with a purified desire, isn't it? Otherwise that action has no much value. So it means to purify the desire. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of purifying the desire? What do you mean by that? Purify the desire.
Our desires are towards matter, so we are purifying that so that we can dovetail or
Okay, fine. What do you mean by purify?
make it clean.
And that is synonym, let me say.
Any personal.
Okay, what do you mean by purification? You see, purification means one, you have to understand nicely what do you mean by purification. The idea is purification means there are three things. When you talk of lust, suppose let's talk of lust. Kamesha, krodesha, rajoguna, samadhuma. So what is lust? Lust, okay, so how do you define lust as? Can anybody define?
Any sense gratification with lust and self is lust.
Okay, that's the classical definition. To satisfy our own senses and not senses of Krishna, that's lust. But can you go a little more deeper, because sometimes you can satisfy your senses in the name of satisfying Krishna. So that's a very subtle line. So we have to pinpoint what is lust so that we don't fall into this confusion. Isn't it? Sometimes it happens like that. Actually, many times it happens like that. Especially when you're honoring Mahaprasad and this and that. You think you're satisfying Krishna, but actually you're satisfying yourself. Or maybe kirtans. You're into music, not exactly in holy name. So many things. So how to not fall into that thing? So lust is defined, to understand lust you have to understand three concepts. One is action, one is pleasure, and one is will. Will, you understand will? Will? What is will? What do you say? Will. The intent, the will, soul's will. So you do anything, there are three things: action, pleasure, and will. So whatever we do in this material world, we act, isn't it? Suppose you are eating rasgulla, you are acting. And then you get some pleasure out of it. That's pleasure, eating. But that's not lust. That's not lust. Yogis think pleasure is lust. For yogis. So they try to stop eating rasgulla. For them, lust is eating rasgulla and the pleasure. So they say, okay, fine, let's stop it. Not eat it. Not take pleasure. But for us, it is not. For us, there is another thing. The will, the desire to eat that rasgulla. You see the point? The desire to eat it. So either you say will or desire. We were saying Krishna consciousness is desire. The desire to eat and enjoy it, the desire to enjoy it, that is lust. So as soon as, so fine, you might not eat rasgulla. You might not have any pleasure of, so if you don't eat rasgulla, you will not have any pleasure also, isn't it? It's not there on our tongue. But still you can be lusty. If you see rasgulla and if you desire to enjoy it, you have fallen into lust. You have done a sin. You see the point? It starts there. It starts at the level of desire. It doesn't go at the level of action and pleasure. Because if you say the action of eating rasgulla is lust, then how you will eat Mahaprasad? Tell me. That's also action, no? Somebody gives you Mahaprasad rasgulla. If you say action of eating rasgulla is lust, no, come on, then what, are we supposed to eat it or not? And if you say the pleasure, the taste of rasgulla is lust, but then if you eat Mahaprasad, you get taste, isn't it? Then what to do? No. That's what devotional science is. No, when you take Mahaprasad of rasgulla, you will eat it. You will feel the pleasure also, taste of rasgulla. But you don't have a desire to enjoy it because you are receiving it. Isn't it? You're honoring it. You're not desire to enjoy it. Okay, give me that rasgulla. No, that's not there. You're simply receiving as mercy. So that's why you're not lust. You're not into lust. Even though you're eating rasgulla, even though you are getting pleasure out of it. You see the point? But Jnanis cannot understand this because they are not working on desire. They just stop everything. So when a devotee is eating rasgulla, he gets pleasure of eating the taste, and then he glorifies Krishna, isn't it? Chaitanya Charitamrita. That this taste. So what did Mahaprabhu used to say when he used to take sweet, tasty sweets? Tasty Mahaprasad. What he used to say in Chaitanya Charitamrita? Can somebody close his gate? These children are. Yeah. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say that, well, this is so pleasurable, so much taste in this Mahaprasad that definitely Krishna's lips must have touched it. That's how it goes. Adharam, madhuram. You have heard this? So he remembers the lips of Krishna. So of course, that means Mahaprabhu is getting the taste, isn't it? He's getting the taste. But then remembering Krishna. And he's eating, he's doing the action, he's getting the pleasure. So that's not lust. So lust has to be something else. That's a desire to enjoy. So it is said that is why even before you do sin, you can commit sin. Simply by desiring it. And that's what we have to be cautious of in our soul. What exactly we are desiring. So purification means to change the desire. Not the action and not the pleasure. That's why I was asking what is purification. To change that desire, to change that will, the desire to enjoy. Either you say desire to enjoy or you can use the one word will. The will to actually do something independent of Krishna. The will to enjoy it. That's what we have to see. That is why Prabhupada says, purify your free will. Isn't it? You have heard this? We have a free will. Purification means to actually direct our free will from material world to Krishna's service. That's what we are doing here. So that's what we have to be cautious of, what we are actually doing. So, you might see a rasgulla and you might think, let me eat, it's nice. But then suddenly you stop yourself. Isn't it? Sometimes we say, no, it's not right, I should not enjoy. I just heard in lecture. Suppose you go down and there's rasgulla and you, and okay, yeah, Mahaprasad, okay, yes. Prabhu, can I have it? But then you think, oh, well, it's Mahaprasad, but still I'm desiring to enjoy it. So that's lust. Somebody should give you. You can't just ask, that's not a good idea. Prasad means mercy, it has to come to you. So, okay, so then you remember, no, Prabhu told, so I should not do. So, okay, now tell me, in that case, did you commit sin of lust or not? You stopped yourself. But did you commit or not? You committed sin of lust. Even though you stopped yourself. Because Krishna is seeing the desire. He is not seeing the action. Neither he is seeing the pleasure in that. He is not seeing that. Seeing the desire. And he is there inside you. He will not, yes. He thought about it, he desired, okay, he has done sin. And that needs little subtle cautiousness, that needs attentiveness. That is why it is said that, so what's the 10th offense? Not to be attentive while chanting. You know that, no? 10th offense, not to be attentive while chanting. Now that offense doesn't mean that while chanting only you have to be attentive. It means that even when you are not chanting, you have to be attentive, because there's no time when devotee is not chanting, either on beats or in mind. That's a devotee. So if you say to be attentive while chanting, okay, so I am chanting Hare Krishna, I am very attentive, and then you finish chanting and then you are not attentive, then this means, first of all, you are not a devotee because you think chanting is finished. When chanting is over, chanting is never over. Devotee is always chanting. Prabhupada says 16 rounds on the beats, innumerable rounds off the beats. In mind is always, isn't it? Glorifying Krishna. Glorification of Krishna is chanting. His whole life is glorification of Krishna. His whole life is chanting, by the way. So you're chanting always, so you have to always be attentive. So the offense in Sanskrit is 𝗪𝗪𝗪. Not to be attentive. Offense is not that not to be attentive while chanting. It's not there. Not to be attentive. That's the offense. A devotee should always be attentive in his life. Attentive on his desire to enjoy. And that you have to work on. That's why Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness means to purify the desire. It's a very deep statement. It's not simple, purify the desire. And it goes on. No, it doesn't go on like that. This is from one of the lectures. So you see, it is little subtle. The first perspective of Krishna consciousness means activity. That's little gross definition, isn't it? Krishna consciousness means activity. That may be good for children, because they can't be attentive and introspective. So for children, okay. That's the initial stage. You start like that. Okay, what is Krishna consciousness? Do something for Krishna. Okay, book distribution, prasadam, there's so many services, Diwali Mela, okay, go and do something. Yes. That's required. But that's a starting stage. But when you go deeper, it's actions plus the desire behind the actions. You're looking for that, what's happening with that. So you see, you are going a little subtle. So Prabhupada in his books, he's giving a very basic foundational definition and also deeper definitions. So if you just take one statement, then you miss the whole thing. That's how you read Prabhupada books, by the way. So I'll talk about that anyway in the evening. But so that's why if you read one book of Prabhupada, some books of Prabhupada, and not all books, you will become confused. You have to read all the books of Prabhupada to get a holistic knowledge. Because he's talking on different levels. All levels have to be understood. Okay, can you next? Then Prabhupada goes little deeper. And he says Krishna consciousness means self-abnegation. This is one of the books, I didn't quote, but from one of, I think, Elevation to Krishna Consciousness somewhere. Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness means self-abnegation. Self-abnegation means what? You know self-abnegation? That means actually denying yourself, denying the desire to enjoy. Now, in the second definition, Prabhupada says, okay, be attentive, don't desire to enjoy. But in the third definition, in the third perspective, he goes a little deeper. He says, okay, if you have to stop the desire to enjoy, then you have to stop yourself forcefully. You have to stop yourself willfully. No, I'll not think like that. Because sometimes the desire is very strong, isn't it? Even before you go to stop it, the action is done. Then you think, oh my God, I've already eaten rasgulla. I don't know when did I eat, and I was just planning to stop that desire and it's in my mouth. Sometimes it goes very fast. Dhyayata vishampamsa buddhi nasha pranashyati. Between steps it's gone. It's very fast. So that's the power to say no. That is Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is bringing that point. The power to say no to that desire to enjoy. That's a little more difficult, isn't it? To identify it is easy, but then power to say no, that's the difficult part. Because that force will come from inside. How will you stop it? That force will come. You and chant also, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. That force will not allow you to chant even. So self-abnegation, that is also Krishna consciousness. Yeah, can you go to next? Okay. And this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela. 25th chapter, I think. 25th chapter, 266 verse. It's just here hiding. Can you just remove that? My photo, then we can read that. So this is, Prabhupada says, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, 25th chapter, 266 verse. So Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness means understanding the truth of Krishna, the truth of devotional service, the truth of love of God, truth of emotional ecstasy, truth of transcendental mellows, and truth of pastimes of Lord. This is a beautiful verse. If you read in Bengali, it's beautiful. The Bengali goes, Krishna Tattva, Krishna Leela, Krishna Bhakti Ar, Krishna Bhav, Krishna Ras, Krishna Prem Sar. You see the Bengali verse, CC Madhya 25, 2.666. Go and have a look. So Prabhupada says, this is Krishna consciousness. He goes little deeper. He says exactly so. So if you want to develop that power to say no, to desire to enjoy, then you need to really understand these 6 truths. These are 6 truths we have to understand. You have to understand truth, and then you will get the power to say no. And what are the 6 truths you should know? So you should have knowledge, you should philosophically should be very clear, absolutely clear what you're talking about. Otherwise mind will get really confused. So what are the 6 truths? Truth of Krishna, truth of truth of devotional service. Truth of Krishna means Krishna Tattva. Truth of devotional service means Bhakti Tattva. Truth of love of God means Prema Tattva. Truth of emotional ecstasy means Bhav Tattva. Truth of transcendental mellow means Rasa Tattva. And truth of pastimes of Lord means Leela Tattva. These 6 things. Krishna Tattva, Bhakti Tattva, Prem Tattva Ar, Bhav Tattva, Rasa Tattva, Leela Tattva Sar. 6 things you have to understand. And that is why Jiva Goswami wrote 6 books. Shat Sandarbh. If you know, according to these 6 topics. So we have to understand all these 6 if we really want to be Krishna consciousness. That is how Prabhupada defines Krishna consciousness word. He gives little deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper perspective. So you see the point, if you read all the books of Prabhupada, then you know Krishna consciousness. Otherwise you miss the whole thing. So that is how we define Krishna consciousness. It starts with action. When you advance a little bit, you go behind the actions to the desire. And you're working on the desire. When you advance a little bit more, then you're developing a power to say no to the desires by the strength of chanting and reading. And when you advance a little more, then when your desire is purified, then you can exactly understand all these tattvas as it is. Otherwise your mind is clouded. And then you are really Krishna conscious. Yeah, next slide please. So that is Krishna consciousness, and ultimately this is Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Everything rests on chanting holy names. But in fact, we are chanting, but along with chanting, you have to understand what you are doing. Otherwise, as I've explained, the definition of Krishna consciousness, the perspective of Krishna consciousness, the components of Krishna consciousness, if we don't know what we are doing, then we can chant, but we'll not have quick effects. We might confused, we might fall down also after some time. That's how it goes. Any questions? I'll stop here. Any questions in this seminar?
Very advanced topic. Some time to sink in.
Well, it's nice. I mean to say, somebody asks, what is Krishna consciousness? We should be able to speak for half an hour, no? Okay, here, this is Krishna consciousness. So that's why I thought I'll take this topic, because it's basics, but it's nice. Yeah, Prabhu.
So, how to advance those levels, like how to stop the desires?
How to advance those levels? Can you go behind? I'll just tell you. You tell me. I told you already. You tell me how to advance. So these are the levels. It's a more depth. How to go from one level to another. So if you want to go from Krishna consciousness means activity to Krishna consciousness means to purify desire, what do you do?
To purify the desire.
No, but what do you do? What do you do?
With the power of chanting and reading books.
Okay, by that transition from activity to purify desires, to be attentive, that can be achieved by two things, by knowledge and by association. Otherwise it will not come. Only knowledge will not do that trick. You have to be with some person who is attentive in his life. And by seeing his actions you will know, okay, this is how to be attentive, otherwise you will not understand, isn't it? And that's where the most important thing is in devotion is association of devotees. You need association. Personal association also. Books and lectures will not do the trick. And that is why we call Vaishnavas in a house and we associate with them. Otherwise, what's the importance with that? And if you want to go from second level to the third level, from purifying your desires to developing a power to say no, how do you get that? How do you get that? The power to say no. That will be given by chanting holy names. Because without the strength of holy name strengthens your soul. It gives the power to say no. And that transition can be made by chanting with proper attitude. That I explained. What's attitude? And if you want to go from third to fourth transition, to understanding truth of Krishna Tattva, Bhakti Tattva, Prem Tattva, Bhav Tattva, Rasa Tattva, Leela Tattva, all these Tattva, if you want to understand, then how do you make that? How do you make that transition? It's simple. Understand philosophy in association of devotees. Then you make that transition. You have to associate with somebody who understands all these concepts precisely. Who is pure, who is scholarly. You have to associate with a person who is scholarly, who is pure, I mean to say, you have to associate with a person who has 4 qualifications. Who understands the subject, who is pure in his sadhana, who is able to make you understand actually, because if he understands, then if he is not able to make you understand, then well, what's the point of that? And fourth is, who can solve your doubts? Because you will have some questions, and if your doubts are not solved, then you lose faith in that person, and it doesn't work. So to come to that 4th level, you need a person who is having these 4 qualifications. Otherwise, and so that means so in the first step also you need sadhu sang, from action to purify desire. In the 4th step also you need sadhu sang, but in the 4th step you need sadhu sang of a very high caliber to make that transition. In the 1st step, you can take normal sadhu sang also, isn't it? Little more advanced, they are attentive, they are a little more serious. That can work. Like your Bhakti Vikasa. You can go to 2nd level. But if you want to come to 4th level, then you need some serious association, some serious You have to find some serious associations somewhere or the other on this planet. And then associate, and then ask, and then you have to work a little. You have to work. So
understand subject?
he understands the subject himself, and his sadhana is very strong. He's pure in his thoughts and mind, and that means sadhana is strong. He is able to make you understand, and he is able to solve your doubts. He or she, whatever.
Getting that kind of association is very difficult.
Yeah.
Hardly you get the association.
Yeah, but there are devotees.
Like if you are in that busy also, like it's very difficult. The Guru Maharaj is there. They have those qualities.
But they are not available.
Yeah.
They are very busy.
That's right. Because we might be
So.
one quality. We are associating. It's like.
But you know what? I'll tell you one thing. Yeah,
Most of the time we compare with others.
it is difficult. It is difficult. I know that. It's rare devotees. But they are good devotees. But at the same time, that's what I was telling. Krishna consciousness means desire. That's where I started. If one word, that's desire. And I explained this. So if we have a desire to associate with this kind of devotees, then Krishna will arrange. Krishna will not keep quiet. And so that's why I said, that's why I quoted from Bible, ye shall knock and it shall be given. You ask and it shall be given. But the point is, we don't ask with that anxiousness, isn't it? That's what I told. Krishna consciousness means anxiety. That anxiety is not there. So then Krishna doesn't arrange. So, and also Krishna knows when to do that. I mean to say, we might also ask with a lot of anxiety, but he might not arrange immediately because he knows that that is not good for this devotee's health now. If I arrange now, he will not be able to take everything from that association. He will not value much, so he might not, but that desire has to be there, and Krishna will do something when he thinks it's appropriate.
So Prabhuji, you have to go now to another place.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. And just a minute. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. Yeah, I think there are some books you can have a look. There are some books there in the counter, and I'm just announcing because people are on the TV. So I just wanted to tell you. I've announced many times, but anyway, people who see, this is one pen drive. People who are watching and who will watch, if you want this pen drive, you can have it from me. You can swipe the card. All my lectures, even this is there in this pen drive, and many other things about Krishna consciousness, about Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya, many seminars. These are some books you can have from the table. Crazy Ideas, Science Fails to Explain Life, I announced yesterday. And if anybody wants, most welcome. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.